Welcome to the Dropping into Power podcast, where we'll be hearing stories about the transformational power of surfing from women surfers of all ages, all levels, and all over. We'll hear about courage, commitment, struggles, frustration, epiphany, and, of course, life transformations large and small. I'm your host, Sheila Gallion, and I am stoked to share these conversations with these amazing women full of so much passion with all of you. Hi, everyone. So we're just about to drop episode 12 and have just hit 2,000 downloads of Dropping into Power. And I just want to thank everyone for being a part of this. It's been so much fun. If you do love the podcast, please feel free to give it a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen, if that's possible. If you really love the podcast, it does take me quite a lot of time to do this passion project. And if you'd love to buy me a cup of coffee or a bar of wax, you can leave me a tip. And Venmo is my name. You'll find me at Sheila-Gallion. Thanks so much for being part of it. And I hope you enjoy this next podcast. On this computer. So aloha and welcome to the Dropping into Power podcast. I'm so excited today to be talking to my friend, Jenni Lund. And Jenni, oh my gosh, where do I start with Jenni? She's just sitting before me, this beautiful, radiant being. And that's a misnomer because you are all of that, Jenni. But what's so incredible to me about you is you really do have this combination of this radiance, but this sort of badassery, that's in there. And now you've stepped into this other kind of energy because you're opening up to this just completely new adventure. It's a blend maybe I really understand to and relate to, that, you can sort of be in this glowing place and also just kind of kicking ass, whether that's flying down a mountain on a snowboard or, paddling through huge waves as you're just learning how to do it. And now coming in from what I'm just talking to you just before to sort of a new way of molding those together, which is really, really interesting to me. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But the main thing is Jenni is off to Costa Rica. And for a little background, Jenni and I are almost exactly the same age. I met her when she was doing acupuncture on my daughter, an incredible healer, really efficient, really intuitive, really on it. And between the time that she started working on my daughter and then COVID happened, and there's a whole story to how this happened for her, but at 55, were you 55 or 56? Yeah, 55, she decides she's paddling out. And not only is she paddling out and taking this on and, just answering this call so hard every day, so hard, opening up this world, making these friends. Next thing you know, she's down in Costa Rica. The next thing you know, she's back. Maybe I'll come back to Hawaii. Nope, I'm going back to Costa Rica. And just this personifying that you're doing of this deep call that you hear in your body. And man, girl, you go for it. And you go for it. And you have a son, and you have been around a little while. Like, it's not everybody's story. So your courage. And I think to me, what really stands out for you, and it comes from this very soft place, but this total commitment, man, you are committed. And it's funny because as I was saying all this, I'm preparing, kind of feeling that that's how I've always known you. I see this energy coming up in you that's more like this still, powerful, presence of doing. So it's really interesting and cool to me. And I know that was a long intro in a way, but I just want to give some context because you're a really unique, special, amazing person. And you were like, well, you want to interview me? And I'm like, you're so inspiring. And you're like, really? And I'm like, really? So, because I think you're just so doing it, that you're not thinking what you are embodying and walking with. And it's just lovely. So, okay. All of that to say, hi, Jenni.
Hi, Sheila. Thank you for the amazing introduction.
Yes, my pleasure. And thank you for finally, in fact, well, the funny thing was Jenni was going to do the podcast But then she was like, I mean, this was really maybe 6-7 months ago, and we had it kind of
It
all
was
set.
more. It was
When was it?
Well, it was 8 months that I left for Costa Rica, and we
8 months
were going to
ago.
take right
So she
before we
sends
left.
me
Yeah.
these beautiful questions back, this sort of deep dive. I'm so interested in her story. And then she's like, oh, sorry, going to have to postpone moving to Costa Rica. And I was like, what? So everything has happened since then. And we're going to have to walk back to that, because I do want to touch on some of your story growing up, because another big part of the story that interested me about you is you're this woman who has accomplished so many things, followed so many dreams, and we'll get into some of those. But the one that was very elusive to you and seemed very out of touch, even though you grew up on Maui, was surfing. And this is a big part of what's evolved for you. So let's start there. Let's start with what it was like for you growing up on Maui.
Well, in general, or surfing wise, or
I guess just in general. And, I know that you were an athlete, and it was interesting to me that you were going co-ed, since there was no other opportunity. But yeah, just growing up on Maui, growing up as a girl on Maui.
Yeah, we moved to Maui, and I was pretty young, 1976, and I remember going to Kihei Elementary School in bare feet and pukas in my shorts and the same clothes every day. And I was very much the little haole girl, and it was very undone on Maui at that time. Still, I think there was 2 traffic lights. And really have really fond memories of my childhood, and we spent every day at the beach. But surfing was it wasn't in my world at all. And I only saw boys surfing, and I thought that surfing was something that only people who could handle big waves could do. I didn't really understand at that time that you could surf smaller waves. I thought that you had to be out in the big scary ocean, and I was pretty intimidated pretty early on by big waves, getting caught in big waves and getting thrashed a little by the ocean as a kid. And actually, I almost drowned earlier than that at Kahaluu. I went out in the waves at Kahaluu on Big Island. We lived on Big Island for a little while.
Oh, wow.
And I went out swimming at Kahaluu, snorkeling, and I got caught in the surf out there because I wasn't paying attention. Wow. And this local surfer kind of picked me up and threw me on his board and paddled me in and kind of tossed me on the beach like stupid haole kid,
How old were you then?
I think I was affected by, that, and just not having any role models at all for surfing. So,
and it's so funny. Kahaluu keeps figuring. I guess I'm talking to Kona girls, but it's funny. It keeps popping because it's such a unique place, and I always like to mention, like, yeah, it's gnarly. I mean, it's it looks all beautiful, and it's where they take the surf schools, but the current gets crazy, and you could get dragged down to other beaches, and and it doesn't look it. It looks all nice and pretty.
It looks like an aquarium, but it's not.
Looks like an aquarium. Yeah, exactly. It looks like an aquarium, but it's not.
Yeah.
So were you on Maui? Did you go to, where would you have gone where there were waves? Because the Kihei side, I know there's not really waves.
Kihei side didn't have a lot of waves. That was probably at Tuba Cove was really the only little surf spot we had. La Perouse was further south.
Oh, La Perouse, yeah.
Yeah, and then Malaya Bay would have been the first one.
Oh, and that can get really scary. Yeah. I mean, I can see looking at Malaya Bay. Oh my gosh, and the last swell. I don't know if you saw any of the footage.
I saw it. It was crazy looking. I couldn't believe it.
And Maui's tricky too. I mean, people have an image of it being so easy to surf in Hawaii, but it's kind of not. I mean, there's a lot of different tricky spots and tricky pieces about it. And I guess there's places.
Surfing is tricky to me anyway.
It is. It just is. It's so tricky. Yeah. So that's interesting. So you said you played soccer.
Yeah, I played co-ed soccer because there wasn't enough girls to play on Maui to make a team. So I just played with the boys until I really just got so small. Sometime in high school, the boys kept growing and I stayed kind of small and it was a little scary.
That's funny. Did you do other sports?
I did track and field, and I just was all around sporty, kind of tomboyish, played with boys, rode bikes, ran, jumped. I wasn't very good at anything that had a ball except soccer. Like if I had to throw it, baseball or football, that kind of stuff I was no good at. Yeah. But if I had to run, Usually I was pretty good at it.
And so even you said even there were no Hawaiian girls, surfing at that time. Like you just
Well,
no
there was
girls at all.
one girl that surfed, and she was not a Hawaiian girl. She was a Hawai'i girl whose dad surfed, and they lived in Malaya. And so she was the anomaly. And I really remember her for that. Like, I thought it was crazy that she knew how to surf.
That's so interesting, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah. So we were both born in 1965. So, that, and I guess we must have kind of just missed the Gidget thing or whatever. And that would have looked really stupid to us. Like, I know that whenever I saw those movies, that just looked really dumb and dated. Like, I didn't relate that in any way to, it wouldn't have had any, or like Elvis movies or, it would have been in that category. So I wouldn't have ever thought that. I did finally see some girls surfing when I was in high school, but it was it was just really not. I guess California maybe had, no, not really. I mean, we just really didn't see it. So it's, I find it so interesting that even women, I've interviewed women, most of us are over 40. There's been some in their 30s and 20s. But even the younger ones really hadn't seen much surfing, but especially us for women. I mean, we really hadn't. And the only images we ever saw were women standing on the beach in the copper tone, get in the bikini. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting that was so separate. And of course, Title IX, I mean, you're an anomaly being so athletic at that time. I mean, my mom still told me like that she was afraid my muscles would turn into fat, because I was very athletic too. I was more just solo athletic, but, I remember her saying like, oh, be careful with the running because your thighs, they're going to turn into fat.
I've heard that too.
I mean, the stuff.
I worried about it.
You worried about it?
Yeah, I vowed when I was little to just never get out of shape. That was my thing when I was little. I was like, I don't really see the reason why. If you keep moving, you'll probably never get out of shape.
Yeah, and that sounds really logical now, but that was not what was being told to us, Yeah, so that was your own unique.
That was my own take on things. Like, yeah, it could, but what if I just keep moving? Then how could it?
Yeah,
it'll just stay muscular.
And you have. So then after, I won't make you go through every beat, but so then you went to college, and then I just love the sports that you discovered and how you did that, because there's parts to how you explored this.
Yeah. So in college, I learned how to ski. It was the first time I ever went skiing, but I didn't really take to it. And it wasn't till after college really that I was living in the city and I was doing concert promotion, and that's what I did with my business degree. It was a great time in Seattle because it was the grunge scene, and it was all the music was really popping, and also mountain biking was this new sport that I had started to take up. And so after I would get off work, I would run off to the mountains and ride these trails after work. And I kind of started to fall in love with the mountains, really, I think, and the activity in the mountains and being away from the city. And one of the mountain biking guys that I rode with said, hey, you should take up snowboarding. And it was just at this pivotal time where I'd been doing concert promotion for long enough that I was a little bit ready for something else. My boss asked me if I wanted a raise, and I said, no, I don't want a raise. I want 2 more weeks off a year. And he said, I can't give you 2 more weeks. I just kind of had to recalibrate and be like, this isn't really the life, that I want to live. I want more freedom. I like to travel. And so I basically quit my job and I got a snowboard because my mountain biking partner owned a snowboard shop. And I borrowed my aunt and uncle's trailer and I parked it at the top of the ski area and got a job waiting tables and started snowboarding. Awesome. And it really, that changed my life. I never went back to the city, and I snowboarded for 9 years, and then I became a skier. And because skiing got fat and short and twin tipped, and you could just do a lot of backcountry more easily on skis. And
I was really intrigued by that when you said that, because years ago I did a little cross country skiing and I loved it. I never telemarked or anything, but I just love the idea of having that kind of freedom. But it's so terrifying going down any sort of incline on a cross country ski, even if it's like literally like 3 degrees, because there's no edges. There's nothing you can do. So that was really fascinating, the equipment. And there is a really equipment opens new worlds.
Yeah.
Equipment, like where I started surfing all through the 80s, nobody surfed in Humboldt County because it was 48 degrees. So wetsuits changed
Right.
everything. Really good
Right.
wetsuits changed everything. There were a couple nuts. So, okay. So you're living at the top of a mountain, you're snowboarding. Are you just doing whatever at that point just to
I'm
support
doing
yourself?
whatever. I'm doing seasonal work. I thought I wanted to be a river raft guide, and so I trained for that. And then I dumped all my friends and family in this class 3 rapid and almost killed us. And decided that and in this freezing water, and I thought, oh, no, I never guided a trip after that because it terrified me so badly. And I fought forest fire for a year, but it was a lot of testosterone and,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, that was a big thing then, was to do seasonal work the ski area and then work
I
in
remember that. I worked in a
yeah,
ski area for a season and I remember and then
yeah.
the Alaska fishing boats.
Yep, that was
Um,
the other one. My dad wouldn't let me do that because he worked on fishing boats. So he said,
mm,
no way, you're not coming up there. You'll
it's
hate it.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
so dangerous.
I continued the seasonal work and I became a yoga instructor. So I was waiting tables in this little town in the mountains and, working at the ski area. I did that for a long time and traveling. I spent a lot of time traveling in different places. I spent a lot of time in India and Nepal because I was real drawn to the roots of yoga. And I got real into all of that philosophy and in visiting the places where it all came from and immersing myself in all of that, looking for enlightenment and doing that whole trip as well as skiing really hard and biking really hard. And
Well, it strikes me that when I was reading through your story and just talking about it, that all of these things you really were in the beginning of all of them. Your timing was amazing. Just, landing with the mountain biking, right when it was first starting, getting to grow with that and getting to be a part of the beginning before it got crowded and overwhelmed. And same with snowboarding and really early to that deep dive in yoga too.
very
I know
early, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
probably the second way, but still really early in mainstream being able to make a living and an impact on people doing that. And then
Yeah. When I
acupuncture
trained,
too.
totally. And when I trained for yoga, I was only 2 schools in the whole United States that actually even had a yoga
Oh,
certification,
wow.
Palu and Ananda. And I went to Ananda because it was in Nevada City, California, and it was closer and just seemed like a good spot. But yeah, it was, I guess all of it was early on. And we used to snowboard in sorels and
Yeah.
really weird bindings that super obsolete. That sport changed really fast.
So that was because I was working on a mountain in Tahoe. That was, God, it would have been 84, I think, is when I worked there. And snowboarding was
Yeah.
just infant. Like
Yeah.
I kind of knew some people that did it, but not well enough I never got to do it. And then I spent time in Bryan Head, Utah for a while before that became a big, I was married to a blues musician and he would get to spend the winters up there and I would go visit when I wasn't working and ski and cross country ski. But now that's a full, and again, I kind of missed the snowboard moment. It was just happening. So I was sort of dancing around it, but I never got a chance to put my feet in there. And I always thought I would have been good at it because I surf regular foot, but I'm actually goofy foot. So
Oh,
I
wow.
always thought that might help me, but now I'm kind of chicken. So the reason I bring all that up is I think it's got to be such a different experience. And I also noticed in your story that you almost drowned people in water. So
Yeah.
there's a water thing going on
Yeah.
here that you've, really, I would say mastered these other elements. I know you don't consider yourself a master because I'm sure
Yeah.
there's masters of all kinds, but nonetheless become really expert and proficient in these other sports and then in your life. And we're sort of jumping ahead, your acupuncture, getting into that pretty early in the curve. And
Hmm.
I mean, Jenni is extraordinary. Like, you're not just an acupuncturist, you have a lot of tools. And, it's not what you're focusing on right now, but you went big. Like, you're not just somebody sitting in lotus, here, let me put a few needles in there. Like, it's really transformative, what you created and really successful. So I think that's the element I also want to show. Like, when I've met you, you have that business acumen and that ability to create and shape from your own gifts and turn it into something tangible. And maybe that's something you built over your life. Or maybe that's something I'm kind of having a feeling it's something you always had a bit of a knack for, even if you're living, I mean, I lived in a trailer on a cliff, but I never managed to make enough money to go anywhere, besides there. I had a little drinking problem. So, and other things that I spent my money elsewhere.
Yeah.
But, just this again, this focus that you have, and that part's inspiring, because I think a lot of people, just don't believe they can do it, and just up and do it. So let's talk a little bit about the water thing and your story that you told yourself up to the age of 55. Look at what you did. I mean, so this is what I wanted to point out. Like, you've done all these amazing adventures. You've restarted life. You've traveled to India, immersed yourself into the deepest depths of yoga. You've brought that back with your wisdom. You've studied these incredible paths, memorized, gone super deep, gone from the top of mountains. But still, there was a story. You're living in Hawaii. You see at this point lots of women surfing, and there's still this story. So talk about that, how that kept kind of barking at you, or what that felt like for you.
Well, I wanted to surf so badly from some point. I can't remember when it was exactly, but I would take surf lessons when I would travel back to Hawaii. I would have friends try to teach me how to surf. I took surf lessons when I traveled to Costa Rica. And every time I did it, something would happen that made me feel like I wasn't good. I'm not good at it. Because things generally came pretty naturally to me. It wasn't hard for me to learn how to ski. The first time I got on skis, they were like, "What? You've never skied?" Or same with a snowboard,
Right.
3 or 4 times on the snowboard, and I was making turns, and I was already in powder, and it was just, no problem. And riding a bike, I've always been really, really good at balance and things like that. And on the surfboard, I don't know what it was. I would get out there and I think that I would be okay. And then the board would hit me in the face. I'd cut my foot. I would run into somebody. I couldn't figure out how to, stand up. I didn't know when to paddle. I couldn't read the, wave, even though I boogie boarded, even though I body surfed, not well, but not as badly as, quote unquote, badly as I was surfing. And the last time I tried to surf, it was when I lived in Hawaii. I had moved here, I think, in 2014, and a girlfriend of mine let me use her Wave Storm, the soft one, and the Costco board, and I was kind of having fun on it. And the next thing you know, I fall off at pine trees. I go to kick. I go to kick and I slice my foot open so bad that I'm almost passed out on the board. I'm looking at it just gushing blood, and I'm like, I'm done. And then I'm so traumatized, almost dizzy, and I go to put my board on the car. I forget to tie it down.
Oh no.
So drive away. I get home. There's no board on the car. I can't find it. Thankfully, there's only a Wave Storm.
You never even felt it come up while you were traumatized.
No, I was just like,
someone got a free Wave Storm.
I can't clearly the ocean doesn't want me to surf. Something doesn't want me to surf. I'm not good at it. And that really just solidified the story that I had. Like, I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it. I can't do it.
Were your feelings hurt? Like, did you feel insulted by the ocean, or did you feel like just frustrated?
I would think I was more just frustrated and confused, like, why? I love the ocean so much. Like, why is this happening? Why can other people do this and I can't? And every time I tried, it seemed to reinforce my story, probably more because the story was there to somehow to start with, or there was a fear or something that had been planted early on, by that incident at Kahalu, or just my perceived failed attempts at surfing. I don't know, but it was a really strong story that I definitely couldn't surf. And then it became I can't surf. And then I would ask people, hey, do you think I could learn to surf at this age? Because now I'm getting older. And it was solidified. People would be like, yeah, it's probably going to be pretty hard, or, they look at me kind of sideways, like, probably not, and so I wasn't encouraged by the feedback either. So I was believing what I was told, and I was believing in my inability, and I was just making sure that story was true, so that I could close that chapter and just get on with my life. And I'm not a surfer, sadly.
So then what happened?
So then COVID hit, and I had already carved out this space in March because I was really feeling like I needed some time because I knew that I wanted something else to come into my life, but I didn't know what it was. And I knew that if I didn't make time for something new, then there was no space for something new to come in. So I had already X'd off the last 2 weeks of March, which my birthday is hidden in there too. And so it was a birthday gift. It was a gift to myself to kind of try to sit with myself and reflect and just have time to see if there was something that was wanting to come into my life that wasn't just the day-to-day busy. And what happened was COVID. And so my business closed because we were all kind of required to close, and it was confusing, and it was fine because I had already taken the time off. And then I sat with the space and said to myself, okay, this really feels like a time to do something that I've never done before. And what makes me happiest? And the answer was that being in my body makes me happiest, whether I'm learning how to salsa dance, which is something that I did. I took off 6 months and went to Peru to learn how to salsa dance and speak Spanish. Or go, yoga makes me happy. Running makes me happy. Biking makes me happy. Biking is really hard to do in Kona. And all of a sudden it landed on me. I thought, oh my God, no, it's surfing. No, there was this, no, not surfing. But I knew it. There was a part of me that was just, I was certain that I needed to learn how to surf. So I decided that I would hire a coach to take me out for a couple of lessons. And I did. I hired somebody who wasn't really supposed to be working because all the schools were closed, but he agreed to kind of just hold my hand and, tell me when to paddle and what to do. And we went out at Kahalu, and I'm sure it wasn't big, but it seemed, like plenty of wave to me. And I just remember I was cold. I was so scared that it was not even reasonable that I was so scared.
Wow.
And he would tell me when to paddle, and I try to paddle into those waves. And all I could see going into the wave was I just looked down over that little edge at the top of the wave, and all I could see was all the rocks, and the reef down below. And I just didn't get it. I'm like, how am I supposed to drop into that with this big foam thing and not just annihilate myself?
Right.
And pretty much that's all that happened. Was I was just falling into waves and kind of wiping out and not really understanding. And it was so scary to me that when I was done, I got into my car and I just sobbed, sobbed my eyes out. And I was also proud of myself, at the same time. But we had made an appointment to do a surf lesson the next day. And I think I ended up actually doing 3 lessons with him, enough to just give me the confidence to know how to get in and out of the water with a surfboard, and to know how to paddle out, and to kind of have some idea of where to sit. And for some magical reason, that year, 2020, there was waves every single day at Kahalu for like 2 months.
Wow.
Like enough waves to go surfing.
That is amazing.
It was, because I didn't, at that point, when the waves finally stopped, I was like, what? The waves stop? I didn't even know they could stop. Like, what is going on? This is so weird.
Right.
I
Well, it's
just
true,
thought
because
that
why would you ever think about it otherwise,
I
right?
never thought about it. I never looked at a surf report. I just got in my car in the morning and I started to learn that I really like to go early because there was less people and I felt less intimidated
Yeah.
because there was less to think about if there was less people.
Yeah.
And I had this little 7-foot taquito, which was a child stand-up foamy paddleboard. That was my surfboard for like a year.
I love it though.
And I was the biggest dork out there in a full wetsuit because I was cold. And oh my gosh. Yeah. And I made so many friends. Like so many people were nice to me out
So
there.
that's really incredible because it's not everybody's
Yeah.
experience. It's not. And
No.
so I think that's what you brought with you, and just your sheer determination and your willingness to learn. Like you're trying to learn etiquette. You're hiring somebody like, tell me where to sit, what do I do? And I think it can be a relatively friendly place here, but you really had, I mean, I wrote an article about how women surfers can change the world. And I mentioned you, not by name, because I was so struck by you telling me that one point that like, oh, I just made all these friends. And that's really
Yeah.
not everybody's experience. And so I think it's incredible that you brought that. And I have to believe it's in your attitude and also in having respect, in having joy, in having commitment. Like I do think surfers, especially those old timers that are out there, especially once you started surfing Lyman's, they admire commitment,
Yeah.
and you were out there every day paddling around on your taquito.
Yeah. Stoked. Like
Just
so
so
stoked.
stoked. So
Yeah.
when did you, because I know at a certain point I started seeing you, I don't go to this break too often, but I know you were surfing Lyman's. Maybe
Yeah.
that was when the waves got bigger because they went away for a while, as they do sometimes, and then
No,
come
my
back.
son got me out at Lyman's.
Mm.
He made me go out there on a day that was small so that I could. He said, "Mom, you're going to really like it." And I had figured out how to get up on, I had figured out a little bit how to paddle into waves and stand up and, go 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 to the left or go to the right.
Right, right.
And so he made me go out to Lyman's on a small day and just feel it and get to know it without having like too much waves to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked it. And so I started kind of getting up the courage to go there a little bit
So
more.
Lyman's, for perspective, because sometimes I forget, I'm not just talking to you,
Yeah.
is a big open left, and it's a point break, and it's fairly deep. It forms into this beautiful, sometimes more mushy left, but it can definitely throw at the peak and get hollow. And when it's one of the places that holds the biggest swell on the island. And when it gets really big, the best longboarders on the island show up there. And even when it gets really good, there's always a big cadre of really good longboarders, old timers, people who've been on the island for a long time. And it's just a beautiful wave. It can get really, really crowded by Big Island standards, but it's just so pretty. And you can get this big open wall if you've never had one before. And it can be really magical. Because I'm surfing a much shorter board these days, and shortboarders surf there, but it's a different dynamic. You have to then sit way inside or directly at the peak, and it becomes a whole thing. And I'm always intimidated sitting way out at the peak. There's a lot of good women that surf out there.
Mm-hmm. A lot of good ones.
So, here you are now and you're starting to see women surfers. So what was your experience with women versus men in the lineup? Or was it, just equally everything? Or what did that feel like?
No, the women were, I befriended the women really fast. The women were really friendly. They were really encouraging. Everybody was really warm for the most part. I mean, there's always somebody who's grumpy.
Yeah.
I'm not always, but I run into people who are unfriendly sometimes. But for the most part, there's this big posse of Kona women that are really cool and really welcoming. And so that was my tribe down there and still is, honestly.
That's so
And
awesome.
It's really awesome. And a lot of us were learning or hadn't been surfing that long, the women that I
Oh,
started hanging
okay.
out with too.
Okay.
So that was fun that I was, I remember being on the inside and saying, I'll get to the outside with you guys in another year.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very
So yeah,
cool.
I had a really and for the most part, a lot of the men are really friendly too, especially the old timers.
Mhm.
And yeah, the local guys that have been around for a long time, I found everybody really encouraging. And I ask a lot of questions, and I really try to stay out of the way and take my turn, and I just do my best to be
Yeah, let me ask you that for
considerate.
people, because there's definitely people that serve much more crowded lineups than we
Mhm.
deal with and are going out. It's very intimidating. Some places are just, the people are not kind, but even given so, not everybody would say like, hey, just start paddling every day at Lyman's and you're gonna make a whole bunch of friends. So what did you do? You just hinted at some of it, but and you just did it naturally. I know you didn't have some Machiavellian
Oh.
plan, but what were the things that you could share with people to, have that experience?
Well, I read an article several years ago in Surfer Magazine about some guy who went out somewhere at North Shore, and he was super intimidated by the lineup, and nobody smiled and everybody looked scary. And he went out there day after day after day and surfed whatever break he was at. I don't even know. But he was saying that people seemed really unfriendly. And then at one of the last days, something happened, and he just decided that he would to be more nice or to smile at people or to say hello. And he realized that that was the secret. Like they were giving him what he was dishing out. And
Mm,
they said that to him in the end. They're like, yeah, bro, you didn't smile. So we didn't smile back. Like you came out
mm.
here all stone faced and serious. So that's what you got in return. And it really stuck in my head. That was even before I was a surfer. I was like, oh, you got it really, you have to be friendly to get friendly, even if you're
Mhm.
intimidated.
But you have to
And
do it in conjunction with etiquette and respect and all of that other stuff.
totally. So, and I was stoked. Like I'm naturally so happy that I'm actually surfing at this point, right? That I
Yeah.
actually am trying and I'm getting better. So I'm feeling so proud of myself. And so I am. I'm really, really excited. And I want to make friends because I don't want to be in the way. And I want to
Mhm.
learn all of the etiquette because there's so much to know out there besides how to pop up and how to where to be and when to paddle and all of the little things that I'm still learning.
So
But
did you
then
ask people literally, what's the etiquette? Did
literally,
you? Yeah.
yeah, what should I do? Where should I be? Oh, I noticed that I took off, or I noticed that I was kind of in your way. Was I in your way? Where should I have been? Or if
Mhm.
I did take off and it seemed like, whenever there was something going on that I didn't understand, I would just ask someone like, can you help me understand how to do that better? Or this happened, was that good etiquette, or was I technically in the wrong place? Or I had to like let my board go because I couldn't hold on to it. What could I have done that would have been safer? Or
I love
just
that.
every
Yeah.
single kind of question, because as you know, there's so much to
Oh,
understand.
yeah.
It's one of the things I love about surfing is just this deceptively simple, beautiful, elegant sport that it is, that's just layered with all kinds of tiny little details that seem to me at this point to be endless. Like
Yes.
there's so
Yeah.
many little ways to do things that can help you. If
Right.
somebody points it out, or if somehow you just figure it out, or you watch enough videos now these days on YouTube or whatever. Um, yeah, so it was a combination of my genuine stoke and really wanting to understand the sport, and also understanding that I need to be nice. So even when I show up out there and I'm really, really scared on the inside, I'm
Mhm.
still trying to be nice
Mhm.
and trying to use etiquette and just make friends.
I love it. I think it's
Yeah,
so great. And I do really feel, just listening, I think just the showing up, the showing up, the showing up in the, all of those things combined. I've definitely noticed, because I've surfed all around the island, and all the years I've lived here, sometimes I've gotten to surf more than others. But since I moved up here and I live near pine trees, I surf pretty much. People ask me from the mainland, they're like, "Oh, how often do you surf?" And I'm like, pretty much always. Like,
Yeah.
like
Any
like
day,
every
any
day,
day there's
I
enough
mean,
waves. Yeah.
almost, especially this last
Yeah.
year. And even going the same time every day, you
Yeah.
start to get a crew.
Totally.
And it really changes and takes off some of that pressure,
Yeah.
their names and, they know yours. And if I can remember their names, I have a little booklet now. I actually, on my phone, I keep the names and I describe when I meet people because I'm really bad at remembering that stuff. I'm just kind of in my
Mhm.
own head. So I now come in from the surf and if I met somebody, I write it down and I write down something that they told me, something about their family. So I can try and embed it, not so that we have to have a huge discussion, but that it just makes me more present and they're more real. And then if they get the wave and I don't, I feel better about it.
Yeah.
And it's just fun. It's just way more fun to know the people that you're
It's
with.
so
And
much more
it just
fun.
takes the whole edge off. So it's kind of interesting to me that it's taken me longer than you would think to learn that. And different times of day are different. Like I personally prefer the morning crew if I can pull that off.
Mhm.
In the evening, everyone's a little more stressed out. They're trying to get their waves in, some of them came from work. So it just depends. So
I
how
think that's, oh,
have you dealt with, because you had those really scary experiences. So how have you dealt with bad wipeouts? Have you had some really scary wipeouts?
mm, all in all, I would say that the scary wipeouts don't really deter me. That they haven't been as scary as I think that they're going to be. Put it
Okay.
that way. I've had close call scary wipeouts. I've definitely cut myself. But I haven't like really, really hurt myself, knock on wood.
Yeah. Right. I'll knock
Bad.
on some for you.
Not,
Yeah.
yeah, it hasn't. And I don't know if it's because I'm careful, a little bit too careful or too cautious. I've definitely had to go in before because I've taken it on the head or
Mhm.
I've been pushed to the bottom and broke my board a little and bashed up my feet and, but nothing that made me not want to get in the water the next day unless I was actually a little hurt.
Right. I love
So,
it. I love the
yeah,
perspective, the difference between it was so scary. I got dragged out of Kahulu and didn't go in the water for 20 years to like,
yeah,
well, I got cut up and smashed and dragged in
yeah.
and like, took it on the head, but yeah, no biggie. So I know this is what it's like. I mean, oh my gosh,
So
it
fun.
happens to
It's
me all
so
the time.
fun.
If I
Yeah.
don't get hurt, I love wipeouts. Like I
Yes.
love being in maybe like a slightly overhead wave. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of foam and then you
Yeah.
sort of bounce up and down like a popcorn ball in the lottery pool. That's what it always reminds me of. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm in the lottery thing. Oh my gosh. The last time my friend and I went out at Lyman's and the super big swell that was here a few weeks ago, and we didn't
Yeah.
go out the biggest day. We went like the day before. And it was kind of breaking in this direction that you could sit way inside. We were on short boards but then we're sitting way inside and then this set comes and I'm just looking at it. And I'm like, oh my God. It was just a massive wall of water. I mean, I just got absolutely cleaned, but I was cracking up the whole time. Like it was so fun because it's not that shallow. You're not going to get hurt.
Yeah, it's
Now,
not that shallow.
when the fourth set came, I was tired. So I was like, okay, I'm sitting in the wrong place. I got to get out of here. But I mean, the evolution of how this unfolded for you is so beautiful to me. So let's now get to the point where you are, because I never even really got to talk to you about this. So
Yeah.
one day you're doing your acupuncture thing. I mean, as COVID had started to come, open things back up, and I think you were working again. And
Yeah.
then suddenly you were off to Costa Rica. So I'm curious how you created that and also what it was like for you. You were down there living on a peninsula for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah. So Costa Rica was a dream that got planted in 2018. I went down to Costa Rica because a girlfriend of mine had invited me down and we sat and we did medicine at Shantiwasi, this place called Shantiwasi, and I was going through a really bad breakup, and I was going to use medicine to help me process that breakup, and I did, and it was profound, like super profound. And there's waves down there, but I wasn't a surfer. And we went from the Osa Peninsula, where Shantiwasi is, across the Golfo Dulce to the Pavone side. And I learned that I'm in this surfer mecca. There's everybody walking around with surfboards under their arms, girls, boys, everybody's in bikinis. And I'm just bummed that I'm not a part of it. And I'm learning that this is like this huge left, and we're in this crazy, like, world class.
Are you goofy foot?
No, I'm not. I'm regular. Right. Yeah. Okay. But I seem to surf a lot of lefts. Yeah. So I fell in love with the place, the people, the place, the whole experience. It was my third trip, I think, already to Costa Rica. I'd loved every part that I had been to. So came back, visited a few more times, the same area, still not a surfer. Mm-hmm. But there was one day at Lyman's when I had a phenomenal surf session, and I was walking back along the water's edge there like you do to get back to the road. And I just had this thought come into my head, like, I don't think there's anything more important in life than surfing. And I can see... I can see how people just give up everything and just go to find in search of waves, because there is something about the sport that is unlike any other sport or anything that I've ever done in my entire life. And honestly, I think that's saying a lot, because I feel like I've had a lot of experiences. Mm-hmm. So there was that. And then I had gone to this meditation retreat in Sedona in August of the same year that I ended up going to Costa Rica, and which was last year, 2021. Yeah. And I got COVID, and I came home, and I was integrating this intense meditation work that I had done and integrating this intense body thing that had happened to me with COVID. And I said, I don't think I'm going to go anywhere for a while. I'm good. I'm just going to stay home, and I'm just going to hang out and surf in Kona and just kind of isolate a little bit until this COVID thing goes away. Because traveling was so intense with all the testing and the whole thing. It was just like, wow. And then it wasn't maybe 2 weeks later, I get a call from my dear friend Mike, who had just built a house down in Pavones. And the same girlfriend that I had gone down with in 2018 had built a house next door to his. So I have two friends with two houses in Pavones. And Mike says, hey, I'm having my birthday in Costa Rica. It's a big one. It's my 60th. You need to come down in November. And I was just thinking, there's no way I'm going to go to Costa Rica in November. And then my brain starts going, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. What if I went down and I just started thinking that Tia, my associate who was working for me, didn't have a place to live. Her house deal had just fallen through. I was thinking, oh my goodness, Tia could live in my house. She could run my practice. I could just go to Costa Rica. I text Mike, what if I come down and live in your house? He's like, yeah, come down. How long do you want to be here? I'm like, what about a year? Yeah, cool. It was just this really off the cuff, like, I think he was kind of just throwing it out there thinking I wouldn't follow through, because who does? Right. And then everything fell into place. And it really was within 6 weeks. I had packed up my stuff, transferred my house and business to Tia, and I was off to Costa Rica in November, the middle of the rainy season. I
love that this came from you deciding, like, just in the way you're telling this story, it just feels like where it really came from is you standing there saying surfing is the most important thing in the world.
I really think that it was. I really think that was the moment where, and I was like, now I can go down. I'd never surfed down there.
Right. You've been down there and never surfed.
Yeah. And so, but it was that idea of like, here's a window of opportunity. And I'm really big on windows of opportunity, because I think they open and they close. And I think a window of opportunity is a chance for us to push against that edge and of being uncomfortable and saying yes to something that doesn't make sense. And it's a practice for me. Like, this doesn't make good financial sense. It doesn't make, how am I going to make it all work? I can't figure it all out. And I don't know. The answer was, I don't really know how it's all going to work, but I know that there's this window of opportunity and it's beautiful. And here it is right at my front door. I could say no, and then I would wonder if I missed
Mhm.
something, or I could say yes and just see what happens. And so I did. I decided, and my kid was on board. So he's like, "Yeah, let's go to Costa
That's
Rica."
amazing. That's
Mhm.
amazing. Mine would not be. So you have the perfect
Yeah, I
setup.
have this kid who likes to go, and he
Yeah.
likes online school. So COVID taught us that he really thrives in online school.
No, that's
And
amazing.
so it was possible, in that way that it all kind of lined up, and it still was really scary and kind of unknown, and so we just did it. Yeah.
So tell me first about the surfing. Like, I want to know, I have to admit, I had some moments of jealousy. Thinking of you down there just surfing every day where I'm doing my spreadsheets. Although be careful what you ask for, because my story is going to change too.
Your story's going to
But
change real soon. Yeah.
and my life is amazing. I mean, I get to surf
Yeah.
here, but I mean, and it's funny with you because you create these things and you're like, I guess you're very inspiring to me. Like I remember when you bought your house and I was like, oh my gosh, how did she pull that off? And I felt a little jealous, fairly happy for you, but like
Yeah.
a little jealous. And then all of a sudden, a year later, I'm buying a house and I'm like, oh my God, I did it. Yeah, Jenni
Yeah.
inspired me and made it happen. And I'm like, oh, now Jenni's in Costa Rica, feeling a little jealous. It might be a sign. It's a good jealous. It's a like,
Yeah, of course.
it's that part that wakes you up. That's like,
Yeah.
wait a
The
minute.
amplifier.
I think it's
You
like,
can
I
do
think
that.
maybe I feel that when I feel like I could create this. Why am I not doing that?
Yeah.
So,
Because I'm not special. I'm not anything
well,
special.
you
I
are special,
just,
but yeah, but I appreciate what you're saying that you're.
yeah, I'm
So what
not.
do you think? So I love just how you just frame that. There's windows of opportunity and you can't figure it all out. And granted, someone could say, well, you had all these other things you pieced together, but you've done it many times in your life
Yeah.
without as many of those pieces. So, but here, the themes that I hear is you ask for help, you make friends, you put yourself out there. You get your aunt and uncle's trailer. Like, yes, you had one with a trailer, but you did it. You make friends with these other people, you ask questions, you definitely have this high level of being able to do stuff. But surfing broke that story because it wasn't natural to you. It's not natural to anybody. I mean, unless you're okay, maybe Jackson Dorian. Okay, we'll leave him out of it. But if you're not a kid,
Yeah.
and you somehow just aren't completely born into it, it's just hard for everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you broke that story and you're, creating this, just I don't know, just walking down this path. But so I want to know, okay, how much better did your surfing get? Let's talk about that.
Well, my surfing changed because I came down with my fun board, which was a 7/8, which was the first board that I really feel like I started to catch bigger waves on and do different things with. And I took it out I went right to the point, the hardest wave of the whole thing, because there's lots of different breaks.
Good
I
job.
mean, we did surf different breaks. We surfed a couple smaller little places before we went to the point, but almost right away, Pukar and my son, went to the point, and it was a pretty big day already. And it felt like Lyman's to me. It felt, like that left point break.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember just paddling out, and I had to paddle through the whitewash, and it was kind of intense because there's no way to get out if you don't go through the waves. So that was
Mm-hmm.
already really new for me because in
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii, they come in sets, either come in sets and you can kind of time it to get out,
Mm-hmm.
or you can paddle around the break.
Right.
So
There's
I
a channel.
hadn't,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a channel. And in Costa Rica where we were, there was no way out other than through it. It's always breaking. There's always something coming in at you.
Mm.
And it could be bigger or smaller, but it's
Yeah.
wave after wave after wave after wave. And so I had this, what I considered to be kind of a lot of board. And I could catch a wave and go in with it, but then I had to get back out again.
Mm-hmm.
And when it really was breaking, having that big board it became like scary for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I have too much board, and almost everybody out there is on a short board.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's a huge disproportionate of people longboard to shortboard. And I'm observing the people who are surfing, and it's a fast break. Pavones is fast and it's left, and you have sections. It's a really long left, but you have to get around these sections, and you got to go fast enough and stay high enough and know when to like drop down and get around the, to the next section. You got to pump your board. And I was like, I'm going to have to learn how to shortboard. And that happened pretty quickly. And at the same time as I was kind of looking for a shortboard, I ran into this couple who was visiting, who'd been going down to Pavones for like 20 years or more, and Dina and Mike. And we had the same crew of friends from my ski area, Stevens Pass, from back in like the day, way back in the day. And it just so happened that Mike was the inventor of GNU snowboards, which then morphed into LibTech, which is now like a surf company as well.
Oh, wow.
And we became fast friends, and they had brought boards down. And Dina's like, I have this little 510 funnelator. You should try it. So I was like, I'd love to try it, because I was trying all these different shortboards, trying to figure out what felt good.
Yeah.
And Dina's 510 was like the board.
Woohoo.
And so she gave it to me. She's like, you need to keep that. That's just your magic board.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Amazing.
So then I had to start learning how to duck dive, and my surfing changed because I'm sitting in a different place. I have to pop up a little bit faster. I was less comfortable because the wave needs to be a little bit steeper. And so I spent the first couple months, honestly, just kind of getting annihilated.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to surf all over again. And I was stoked and frustrated both. Like, oh my God, this is so hard.
Yeah. Totally. It is. So I mean, gosh, you did good in 3 months. I feel like it's been 3 years on a shortboard, and I'm just finally figuring some stuff out. I have moments, I have a harder time with the pop-ups. I don't know, I don't do as much yoga as you. Maybe I should get back to the yoga.
I've made myself do yoga more regularly because I need it. And I need that upper body strength to really pop up right. And not get tired too fast. And
do you have any shortboard pop-up tips for the late bloomers?
Oh my God, no. I don't.
Okay. Well, even doing yoga, like that's.
I think that the trick is for me anyway, is really keeping my upper body strength and keeping my flexibility. I think are really, really important. That's what I've noticed is just strong and flexible. But
yeah, that makes sense. I noticed for me, actually, lower body strength helps a lot. Like for a while I was going to the gym, and I'm not anymore, but doing weights with my legs. And that really helped me too. Just
I probably could use that
all
too.
Of it,
Yeah, but it's like once my arms get tired, if they get tired too fast, between paddling and duck diving and just sitting out, and then you go to paddle into a wave, and suddenly my arms are just a little weak because
the duck diving is for bigger waves. So tell me, what is your favorite thing about your surfing?
Ooh, my favorite thing about my surfing. I don't know, Sheila. I think my favorite thing about my surfing is that I'm actually surfing.
Woohoo! Yeah, that's a great answer.
I think it's just that I feel like I can surf.
Yeah.
I feel like I can go out to many different kinds of surf areas and figure it out and catch waves. And I may not look that great, and I might look awkward on the board because I learned to surf so late in life, but I'm having fun and I feel super proud of myself, And I'm so stoked that I'm on a shortboard, because honestly, I've always wanted a shortboard. Yeah. Because I like the simplicity of the tininess of it and how it fits in my car, and it's so small and light, and it's just less to deal with in the water. So when a big wall of water is coming at me, it's just less bored to have to maneuver in, intense situations. And
I feel that way 100%. And I just got a magic board. Oh, I just got a new board. It's a 511 Paizel Phantom. Oh my gosh. It's just, I've been kind of dreaming of it and looking for it and looking at all these different boards online and, trying to figure it out. It's so hard online to figure out what you might want.
Oh, yeah.
Then one of the surfers, because I started asking more questions too, where I surf, like of the good surfers, like, why is my foot in this? Like, what's going on, And then they would tell me. I don't like it when people necessarily tell me when I haven't asked them for surf instruction, especially men. But but I do really like it when I've gotten some amazing tips like the last
Totally.
few
Nice
months, just
thinking.
so helpful. So this one surfer, Paul, he's like, you should try a Paisel and Phantom. And at the time couldn't even really think about it. And they're so expensive. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But I was kind of, planted a seed in my mind. And then I kept sort of looking at them online. And then there was another surfer who had the board, but it was bigger, but I held it and I was like, oh, I think this is it, but this one's too big. And so I went to Miller Surf and there it was. So it's just been amazing. And I've been surfing waves this big. I've been surfing like 1 foot waves on my shortboard and catching waves, 2 foot waves, because I'm just determined and I don't want to take the bigger board out. I just want to keep practicing.
That's more where I am.
It helps me pump, it's just more pop-ups. It's just more paddling. It's just more familiarity, with the board. I'm finally learning, I know this is embarrassing, but wow, if you actually put your foot where the fins are, where it's supposed to go, a whole new set of things happen.
I'm trying to figure that one out right now.
It's so hard. I know it. Sometimes even when I'm trying to get up, I'm paddling, especially when it's small, I'm paddling and if I'm going left, because I'm surf regular. So if I go left and I get my right foot on the fin pad, but my left leg is too slow coming up, then the board just shoots because it hits where it's supposed to be and it just takes off without me. It's really funny. I'm like, oh, that's where it's supposed to go. So every 30 waves, I think I get my foot in the right place, and it's getting better. It used to be like every 100 waves. Now you're going back to Costa Rica. So I do want you to share, we talked a little bit right before, but it was really lovely kind of how you came to this. So you tell us just what were you going to do and now what you're doing now.
Okay. So I came back to Hawaii to regroup and get back down to Costa Rica because I needed to re-rent my house out. And so I was going to go into autopilot, which is do what Jenni knows how to do, spin something else up, get somebody else in to run my business, rent my house out, have everything make money, and then I'm going to be off again. And all of a sudden I got back to Hawaii and I realized pretty quickly, as much as I love it here, that this was not where my heart was. It wasn't where I wanted to be. I thought about, I could do all those things and I could go back to Costa Rica, but I think that what I need to do is I think I need to pull a plug and go to Costa Rica, which means sell your house, let your business go. And so I had acupuncturists flying in from Washington that were going to run my practice. And I had to say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that plan. I got a different plan. I'm going to put my house on the market and I'm going to just take everything and I'm going to head south because that's what I'm feeling right now. And when I threw that idea out to my son, he's like, yeah, Mom, sounds great. Sell it. I'm ready. Let's go. I want to be in Costa Rica. And so I had the support of him. And so that's what we're in the middle of doing right now is, moving to Costa Rica, which I wouldn't have ever known how to do. But just having spent the last 8 months down there, I can see the how.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the how. And I'm really lucky. I have a house down there waiting for me for 2 years. And I have a lot of friends and I have a tribe on the Osa Peninsula and I have a tribe on the other side of the Golfo Dulce. And I just feel like I have a huge community that Kitty.
Here's goodbye.
Aww.
Well, it sounds like Jenni's magic plan is make a lot of friends.
Make friends.
That's really a through line in your life is have fun, make a lot of friends, show up full on and just go for it. Cause you can just feel that in everything you're doing. And, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm so excited for you and I'm really excited to visit you. You haven't invited me yet, but I'm coming.
Well, you're invited. Please.
I have another really dear friend. So she lives in Nosara. Yeah. And Jenni, who did the podcast, and I met her, she started surfing at 67. And she had done all these incredible things in her life, ridden motorcycles, been, canoeer. Oh, you listened to her. she's so awesome. And she just built a little cabana. So I've got to get my Costa Rica trip together here one of these days. I guess my time's going to open up a little bit differently. But I don't know. How far is Pavones from Nosara?
Far.
Far? Is it?
Super far. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the whole other peninsula. That's up in Guanacaste, right?
We're on a complete, it's a completely, but you can get there. You can fly around, you can drive. It's not that hard.
Back in the day, we took some crazy, because the first time I went to Costa Rica, I went with my ex-husband who didn't like sand, who didn't like water, who didn't like sun. And we went to the jungle, and it was a beautiful place. But I remember kind of not dissimilar to you. I didn't surf yet. And just looking at all of this and going, wow, what am I missing here? And then I came back to California, got divorced, started surfing, had this hot boyfriend who surfed. And then we went back to Costa Rica the next year, and we brought 8-foot boards, and we took buses everywhere and crazy taxi cabs, like going into Guanacaste, like down these 4-wheel drive roads. We took boats across lakes. I mean, it was just this huge adventure.
Yes.
And I was there for 23 days, and oh my gosh, it was incredible.
And Costa Rica still is somewhat of an adventure, but it's not as undone, like
that was a long time ago.
Like everywhere.
That was right after 9/11. That's when I went. It was really,
nice.
really different.
Yeah.
So, all right. One last thing I'll ask you, just especially for people beginning, later in life, I just always like to ask this. Is there any word of wisdom you can offer, anything that you'd like to share?
About surfing?
Yeah, about surfing. Oh, yeah. Well, no, if you would have shared about life, go right ahead. But yeah, about surfing, because, and you've said so much in the podcast, so it's all right if you don't have everything whipped up, but there's just one thing, because people feel so much fear, so much self-doubt, so much self-talk.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you wrote this question out, like as potential questions that you might ask. And I thought about, the way that you wrote it was, I think it was any words of wisdom. And I thought, well, if you haven't started surfing yet, don't start, because I'm part of this new generation of surfers that's clogging. There's so many people surfing now, It's like, I know that it used to be sort of this free-spirited, adventure-filled sport that somehow seemed unattainable, so it kept a lot of people away.
Right.
And now there's so many of us, and I don't know if, like you said, maybe it's the equipment, maybe it's just the accessibility, maybe it's, I don't know what has changed, but wow, there's a lot of us out there.
No, I know, that's so funny. I know what you mean. I know. I think we all have mixed feelings. I mean, I've been surfing for 20 years, and I have a movie that I really think is going to get made and will make it even be more accessible. And I'm like, wow, I don't want to, do I really want more people surfing? And there's kind of a through line that goes through it too, but and then there's
surf camps, and people go to surfing yoga camps, and it's all this thing. And then these big surf camps come and they take up the whole lineup, and it's just like,
oh my gosh.
Wow.
Right.
But I also think there's a reason why it's popular.
Yeah. I think there's something, I think it's just calling us to the water in this deep thing. And not everybody's going to stay surfing, right? I mean, that's what I feel is a lot of people, they're being called to it. They're being transformed by it. They may stay with it or they may not, but it's changing them, and it's changing. It's empowering, there's something, it's so much, it takes so much courage, and you really do take such a beating compared to any other thing, any other pursuit that you will do as an adult. Yeah. Like, I often think about that. I'm literally getting pounded. I'm like, okay, I am 57 years old. I am upside down. Yeah. I'm being shaken like a rag doll. And I'm laughing. That's got to be good for the circulation.
Yeah.
But
I remember one time in Costa Rica that I wiped out. I was really, really close to the shore. So I kind of hit the rocks. I'm paddling back out. I wipe out again, and my cord somehow wraps around my pinky toe one time. And my board goes flying, and my pinky toe is being choked. Oh. And I'm thinking, how?
Yeah.
How is this? Ouch!
Right.
how can you possibly get your cord wrapped around only your pinky toe and like just completely almost chop it off? You know, it was just like, how many different ways can you get hurt on your surfboard? And
No, it's so true. I've had it happen
yeah,
with my pinky finger. Like,
yeah,
I totally know what you mean. Or yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. Well,
it's crazy.
I love your ending advice, and thank you so much. Yeah, I love the honesty. Thanks so much for doing this, and I'm so excited for you.
Thank
What?
you for helping me be brave, because I'm not a big social media person. I'm
Mm,
not one who, I like to share my thoughts as a writer,
hmm.
but I don't like to share so much. Like, I don't like to talk about myself, and I'm a little bit private, and so I was nervous about talking to you, but it was really fun.
Oh,
So
good. I'm so glad. I
thanks
think,
for making it fun and easy, and
yeah.
yeah.
And it just, I think it feels good for us to just hear each other talk sometimes,
Mhm.
just as, women on the verge, women on the verge of nervous breakdowns, breakthroughs, whatever it is. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
So
and it's
thank
important
you.
just like I've been living on this edge of discomfort purposefully, going to Costa
Mhm.
Rica and learning to surf. And this is just another, I thought about today, Sheila. I'm like, this is just another opportunity for me to step up to my edge and be uncomfortable and just sit in that uncomfortableness and move through it. So thank
Oh,
you for that
well,
opportunity.
thank you. It was awesome.